people are on the meeting. We are just trying to put the meeting on YouTube for, live YouTube showing. So just be patient, and I'm taking attendance now. Okay, Mark.
That is a dashing photo of Mark Castiglione.
Jen, I'm seeing meeting is now streaming live on YouTube on my.
Yep, I'm pretty sure it's working now.
Mark.
Yep, we are recording live on YouTube.
All right. Steve, if you want to just give me a few minutes to do the attendance. John Scallo. Randy. Andrew. Andrew. Thank you for your patience. There are a lot of people in the meeting. I'm getting to them all. Peter. Swallen. Tim. Steve Feeney. Okay, I have somebody on by telephone number 518-355-7575.
Mike, that's Peter Comenzo. I don't have a microphone on my
Okay,
computer.
thank you, Peter.
Thanks.
Right now, we're one shy of a quorum. let me go through the list here. Make sure I have everybody. So Randy Milano, are you on?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Randy. Brad,
Yes, here.
Brad, you are here. Okay, that's 11. Chris Wallen.
There's a box with his name.
Yeah, his box with his name, and he's on mute. Well, but he's muted. I think he muted his own. All right. Andrew Kryshik.
Can people hear me now?
Yes, thanks, Chris.
Yep, what I found out is, just so you know, if you're muted on the computer, it hurts your phone, even if you're using the phone. Didn't know that.
Okay, Andrew, you're on right there. Let's see. Sean McGuire, are you on? Nope. Steve Feeney, Mike Valentine, Bill. We have a quorum. Steve, you want to start the meeting? Steve, are you muted also? Steve, we can't hear you.
All right, let's see. Unmute. Now you
There
hear
you
me all
go.
right?
Now
All
we
right,
can hear
thank
you.
Yeah, it's a button on the top. First time, welcome to Zoomdom. Zoomerdom. All right, this is great. May 6th, welcome everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule as challenging opportunities we're all facing. We're still flying a few passengers here at the airport. Michael just did the roll call in lieu of the self-introductions we used to do. I welcome you, and we'll go through our agenda that was distributed by mail and online, and I thank you very much. So we hope everyone is well, and these certainly are unprecedented times, and thank you for your continued support for essential transportation and mass transit in the region. I've got the appropriate background, the 4-county map from CDRPC. All right, are there any visitor issues at this time wishing to address the planning committee this day of May 6, 2020? Going once, going twice. We can move to the administrative adoption of our prior meeting minutes of April 1st, which were distributed. We'll need a motion and a second. Are there any recommended revisions or corrections to the April 1st minutes? Please speak up. Going once, going twice. May I have a motion to adopt the minutes of April 1st?
So moved by Bradley.
Thank you, Brad. Nice background. That's beautiful. Second, please.
Second, Mike Valentine.
Thank you, Michael. All as well. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
abstaining or opposed? Hearing none, our minutes are hereby adopted. Now into Roman numeral 4 is the first action item on fiscal constraint discussions of our tip summary table 4, which is a running and continuing regular meeting running story. Michael, you'll cover this.
Yes, thanks, Steve. So in the packet, there's the existing table 4. There hasn't been a lot of change since the last meeting. The existing table 4 still shows the over programming. I'm trying to find it myself. Still shows over programming in the second year of the tip at 23% over. So we've had several meetings with DOT to discuss this, and we've come up to a solution for the problem. And the problem of over programming, that is. So if you look at in your packet, there are 2 tables that look like table 4. The second table is a revised table based on changed budget estimates that we worked with DOT to increase budget estimates in the second year and in the third year, actually. So if you look at the second table, you'll see that we're 24% underprogrammed in the first year of the TIP, 2019-20. We are 2.8% overprogrammed in the second year, 6.7% under in third year, and 4.9% under in the fourth year with the new budget estimates. Bob Rice or Greg Wickshire, would you like to comment about that at all, or do you have any other comments?
I think Greg's going to take that one.
Yeah, we work together to basically balance the planning targets in anticipation of what's going to be let in the respective years. So this should hopefully satisfy the fiscal constraint requirements.
So we do need to vote on this action, Steve, because it's a change in the budget estimates. Are there any questions from any of the meeting attendees?
Is there other discussion on fiscal constraint? Is Maria or anyone online from FHWA?
Yes, I'm online.
Thank you, Maria. Any comments? Is the proposed mitigation adequate from your view?
Yeah, as long as you guys have adjusted the budget estimates to match your, what you are anticipating for program capacity, I think that should fit it. As long as those estimates are realistic, and they're doable. So that should be fine. Yeah.
Thank you. Excellent. Any other discussion from members?
You'll notice that the budget estimates don't change the overall percentage 4 years of the STIP. So basically, we've kind of just moved the money from one year to another. The 4 year status is still the 2.5% underprogrammed.
So I just want to put into perspective that the funding looks like it's moving from one year to another, but in reality, what's happening is that the budget is, the estimates from the state is changed for that year. Because when we're looking at the funding that you guys are anticipating, from year to year, and they have planning targets, those are somewhat pegged to the obligation authority. So, this is not a rollover, this is an adjustment.
Okay, Maria, thank you.
Any other discussion? We're ready to vote.
Well,
Mike, I have a question.
Bob?
Chris, that's Chris Wallen.
Or it's Chris. Sorry, Chris.
It's more for the DOT, I guess, with this table, is that, given the situation that we're in, I mean, there is going to be some flexibility, right? I know that the regional directors list came out and that we're holding these projects, but I would have to imagine that there's going to be some projects that move forward in time because of restrictions, they couldn't be bid or design. I mean, is there flexibility in it? We're just approving it as a snapshot of today, and then once we have all these things happen, we're going to have to reevaluate, right?
Yeah, always. We're always very flexible on these things, and moving things in or out, which sounds like some things may move out now. And we'll always be willing to rebalance and certain whatever we need to do.
Okay,
Yeah. I mean, Chris, to go along with what Greg had said, for budgeting purposes, it just made sense to adjust the table, as Maria's saying, that you do have your individual appropriations for a year for budgeting purposes, and there could be implications depending on actual project schedules if we need to move quarters or fiscal years and need to find offsets. But for planning purposes, it made more sense to show the table this way.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Are we ready to vote? Hearing no answer. Michael, did you have something?
No, that was just a laugh. That's all, Steve.
Okay. The audio is breaking a little bit on my side. I don't know if there's anything we can do to improve. There are some breakage. Might be a Wi-Fi issue. I don't know. Is anyone else having choppy audio?
It only happens when two people talk at the same time. So if I was laughing and somebody else might have been laughing at the same time about the silence, that may have done it.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay.
Very good. We're ready to vote on item 4, fiscal constraint, table 4, as adjusted. Motion, please.
Bradley moves.
Thank you, Brad. Second by,
I'll second it. Chris Wallen.
who's that? Thank you, Chris. And all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any abstaining or opposed? Going once, hearing none, our consensus carries. Thank you very much. This is working out. Item 5 on the agenda is our TIP budget estimate adjustments with the advanced distribution enclosure. Michael, you're first.
I don't really have much to say. We have a couple, really 2 sets of amendments, Steve, that we could, we could vote on items A and B together, and we can vote on items C through H together. The first 2 items are for the city of Troy, and I think Andrew is ready to talk about that.
Andrew, go ahead.
He was online. Where'd he go?
Andrew Kreshik.
He's
Hit the unmute
muted.
button. What was that, Brett?
He's muted. Here he is.
I am no longer muted. Essentially, when this project was split into 2 phases, phase 1 and phase 2, in order to progress the project and facilitate its progression, we did our best estimate to anticipate construction and right-of-way costs for each. Each phase did fall within the budget that we were working with. However, with phase 1 having been recently solicited and the bid results coming in lower than anticipated, and an anticipation of an increased right-of-way negotiation in phase 2, as well as a question mark relative to bridge construction over a protected stream, we wish to have the excess that was saved from phase 1 carried over into phase 2, as would have been done had this project not been phased. It would have all been the same amount. We're not looking for any increase. It's simply an adjustment, taking the savings that were realized in the bidding process of phase 1 and putting it towards phase 2, where we do feel that there might be increased cost relative to a couple issues relating to right-of-way and acquisition.
Andrew? It's
Yes.
Mike Valentine. What you're saving in the first phase, in the southern part,
Mhm.
you're using that in the northern part.
Correct.
Do you know that will cover all of your cost in the northern part, or are you just making a shift in making that money available to use?
Well, as budgeted, as the budget estimate went, we felt that what we were working with the 2 phases, regardless of this shift, was doable. Fingers crossed, was doable. But this provides us some additional buffer, because there are 2 elements in the right-of-way process that are going to be very difficult coming up. And we're awaiting the appraisers' results for those. We anticipate going straight through condemnation rather than negotiation because of the difficulty that we anticipate. So we don't know exactly what may befall after that condemnation process commences. Whether the cost to cure might be increased by the courts, whether the property owners, might aggressively contest the amounts of cure and mitigation that resulted. So we're looking towards that as having the ability to cover that with the savings from phase one.
Hey,
In-
Andrew, can I just clarify this, Jeff Pangburn?
Yeah, Jeff.
We will be going through the negotiation process, which is required, but we anticipate it will be unsuccessful negotiation and therefore have to go into condemnation. So I just want to
Thank you.
clarify because it's on the record.
Any other discussion? Questions for Andrew? Thank you, Jeff. Going once, going twice. Do we vote on this item? Right, Michael? They're gonna go
Yes.
separate. Yep. Item A, as presented. Do we have a motion to adopt the amendment? Motion?
Bradley makes the motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any abstaining? Oh, nice. Thumbs up. Okay, I like that. Any abstaining or opposed? Hearing none, item A is hereby adopted by consensus. Thank you. Item B, moving forward, is also Rensselaer 195A, State Pin 1761.3, point 30, South Troy Industrial Park Road, Phase 2, northern end.
I'll
So
move
last
that.
discussion was southern end. This is northern end. Is that right?
Yeah, it's essentially the mirror image. It's the flop to the flip.
Thank you, Andrew. Anything else to note before we vote on the amendment? Offset is offered. No, it's not. Let's see. Yeah, so offset is offered. Go on the back side of the page, double-sided printing. No change in the benefits. So the fiscal constraint increase was offset by the R195. Is everyone comfortable voting on item B? Any other discussion?
All set. I'll move the
Hearing
motion.
none. Motion, thank you, Michael. Second
Bradley
by,
seconds.
Second.
thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye, thumbs
Aye.
up. All right. Any abstaining or opposed? Hearing none, consensus carries for item B. And moving forward to item C, Charlie, is the T57 ITR 6.04 preventive maintenance. Is there any discussion on this, Michael? Your presentation?
No, these are adjustments that CDTA makes on a regular basis. Again, you can probably take all these items together as one vote, but Ross,
So that's
Farrell,
C,
you,
D, E, F. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, actually C through H.
right?
Looking at this correctly.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, as Mike put it, these are basically aligning, just like we have to align the tip with the STIP. We have to align CDTA's annual budget with the tip. So that's what these items are, because it's part of the federal funding we receive for each individual item. I don't know if you want to go through each one, but as you can see, they basically call out either operations or buses or preventative maintenance of those of our fleet. But again, yeah, it's just aligning our budget with the tip.
Ross, I have a question for you. Mike Valentine.
Sure.
The last one, H, it says going to the planning committee, and the reason says does not meet threshold. Can you just tell me what that means?
And I have to ask if Melissa, if you're on the call, to help me out with that one. So Mike's looking at letter
H,
which deals with the transit operations for Saratoga service.
My understanding is that does not mean threshold, is that the change is too small, that it doesn't actually require a vote. But I think that was not, I don't think that was a part that we submit. I thought that kind of happened on CDTC's end. That specific one is just the amount that was programmed for Saratoga increased from what was originally on the tip. So this is the federal appropriation. The amount is just a little bit higher, so we're just making it match.
Yeah, Mike, I think we're just trying to put everything even if it doesn't meet the threshold to have to be approved by the planning committee. We just wanted
Mhm.
to put everything on the agenda so everybody knows what the changes are.
Okay. I just
Yes,
asked,
I wrote that.
that's what I thought.
Right, yes. What happened there is CDTA had their proposals to move funding from one project to another and all the rest of it, and they included everything. And when I analyzed it all, that one did not require planning committee action, but rather than go back and ask them to take it out of the letter and all that, it made sense just to leave it alone and present it, but it says it does not require planning committee action because it doesn't meet the threshold. That's what the note says there.
Okay. No, I appreciate the explanation. I was just asking because as you prepare amendments yourself, you're always looking for, I didn't know what that explanation meant in that case. That's all. But I did think I did believe that it came from you, Glenn.
Okay.
Okay.
it's good we all review these. Full disclosure is good, and new or any unusual items should be discussed. This is good discussion. Anything further before we vote on items Charlie, Delta, Echo, Foxtrot, Golf, and Hotel?
Can we move them as a package then?
We're moving it as a package. If
All
that's-
right, I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Michael. Pleasure of the committee, and a second by?
Andrew Greshik.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thumbs up.
Aye.
Thumbs up. Nice, simple as there. Are any abstaining or opposed? Hearing none, our consensus carries for all the transit adjustments as well. Charlie through hotel. And we're up to Roman numeral 7 in our advanced agenda. And this is draft New Visions 2050 update and approval to release the final draft to the public for our long-range vision, 30 years forward in these most challenging times. So item 7, this is going to be Michael.
Well, I'll start off, but Jen Saponis and Chris O'Neill will chime in, actually give a presentation. So, we've been moving the new process along. It is on schedule, and the schedule includes going to the policy board in June to release another draft, a final draft, to the public. So there have been some comments and some changes that Jen and Chris will talk about in detail. Nothing major. It's been a good process so far. We've had a couple virtual meetings. So the good news is we're progressing. We are getting comments, and we're making some small adjustments. So I'm just going to pass it off to Jen to start with the presentation she already has on the screen.
Sure. So like Mike said, the last we left off is Planning Committee and Policy Board approved the draft version to move to the public, and then some things happened. So edits that we have made since then are obviously some tweaks to our public participation process. We're going to talk about the conformity analysis, new vehicle miles traveled data that we got from DOT, additional language to summarize potential pandemic impacts on transit and resiliency, and then some edits to like formatting and language that we've made, and also reviewing comments that we've received, particularly from DOT. So as I mentioned, we are updating the public participation plan. So we've already done that. There is a new version on the New Visions webpage. We had planned for a large part of our public participation plan had included virtual public involvement. So we're somewhat equipped to kind of continue doing that. We did add more of our materials to the website so that people could download them on their own. They could host their own meeting. I know that's difficult now because people cannot gather, but the meeting materials are there, and we are aware of some that have continued. We had about a half a dozen presentations and meetings planned and had to cancel all of them. So right now we have online our funding poll, we have an online survey, the meeting in a box materials, as I mentioned, are still there, which have a survey workbook. There's a teen and youth survey, a kids activity book, and if anyone is interested, they can just email us comments or reach out. we are scheduling and accepting opportunities to do virtual presentations to town boards, city councils, or other community organizations or agencies. So please just reach out and let me know, and we'd be happy to schedule that. So like I said, basically our in-person types of outreach are canceled, but everything else is continuing, and we're shifting. Instead of doing two very distinct separate phases of public involvement, we're just going to do continuous public involvement and education through September. So Chris O'Neill, if you want to talk about the air quality conformity determination.
Sure, thanks, Jen. So we're required by the Clean Air Act to do a air quality determination for the New Visions 2050 plan. So in your package is a draft of that. There's a couple of spots that still need updates because we're working with the Interagency Consultation Group, ICG, which includes DEC, DOT, FHWA, FTA, and the US EPA. And we hope that we'll have that wording finalized before the policy board, but the wording is extremely similar to what we did last year when we did conformity for the TIP. And basically we're saying that the New Visions plan will meet the requirements of conformity. And if you look at the chart below, and by the way, I should mention that our marginal non-attainment area includes the Adirondack Glens Falls MPO, at least for the northern part of Saratoga County. And it also includes Montgomery, Greene, and Schoharie counties. And so we'll be coordinating with the DOT for those counties. We've coordinated with AGFTC as well. And I just want to point out that although we need to do conformity because of the air quality regulations, we have been making steady progress in ozone levels that are recorded in the area. And you can see that in the graph. So what we're asking for is approval of the draft conformity, and then we'll ask the policy board for approval. Then it will go public as a draft, and we hope to have final approval of conformity at the September policy board meeting. So that back to you, Jen.
Okay. So other new information that we've received since we released the New Visions is the vehicle miles traveled data for the state and then for the CDTC area. So this is just kind of an insert of new data into the plan. It doesn't really change anything in the New Vision summary document.
And can I ask you a question about that? Several locations, it refers to sort of the flatlining or going down of it, but the latest data shows an increase. You guys are still comfortable that the principles are the same?
Yeah, I think so. I do want to, the latest package that we got from DOT a couple of weeks ago, I do want to look at it more carefully because it looks at the MPO area for CDTC, and previous data that we've gotten looked at either the county level or the urbanized area. And 2014 is when we started incorporating the Saratoga Springs urbanized area into the data. So I'm just a little concerned. I want to just make sure that the data is consistent with past years. But I think if you look at the overall trend of data since at least 2005, it's very, very flat compared to the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s. It's been quite remarkable, actually, that VMT has slowed down tremendously since those high growth years. So yeah, we do see it as still being a very slow growth trend.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay.
Sure.
So one thing that we do feel that we should add to the New Vision, since everything that's happened over the last couple of months, is an update to the Resiliency chapter, which right now is in the Environment and Technology White Paper. So, you know, as we all know, we don't know what's going to happen or what recovery will look like from this pandemic, but we have been tracking changes, and we'll continue to do that, and to look at, you know, what potential the current and potential future economic and social impacts of this pandemic are. Reopening and recovery may require kind of a reimagining of how we're making investments and what role transportation plays. And then, you know, like I said, we're monitoring everything. We have some data that has showed us current changes, and we will continue to do that and incorporate that into a resiliency chapter in New Visions. Right now, our resiliency chapter talks a lot about extreme weather and changing climate and flooding, but it doesn't talk about pandemics because we didn't anticipate this. So just wanted to talk really briefly about things that are currently going on that Planning Committee might be interested in. This is just some VMT data that we received from Streetlight through the end of April that shows VMT at about 25% of baseline. So people are, you know, they are staying home, and this has had an impact on mobility. We've seen a really rapid, quick implementation of plans to reduce crowding, lots of changes to parking policies and whatnot. CDTA has done a lot of work to adapt and keep people safe. And we should thank CDTA and their workers for continuing to work through this and provide essential transportation to our essential workers. So for, you know, moving forward, I think that New Visions needs to be a living document that we regularly update based on these changing conditions. You know, are some things changed forever? Are there different performance metrics that should be revisited? We wanted to give Ross from CDTA just a brief moment to talk about the transit development plan and how we'll do that, because our original plan was to integrate that with New Vision. So Ross, if you're still there and want to just quickly mention.
Sure. Thanks, Jen. So obviously everyone's lives have changed to some degree, and everyone's business has changed to some degree due to the virus, but ours has really been sort of turned completely upside down. You know, ridership's down about 60%. Our focus now is more on trying to limit the number of people on a bus rather than pack people on a bus. And, you know, before, if you saw a bus with a lot of people crowded on it and pressed against each other 3 months ago, that was a good thing. That showed that one bus and one driver was hauling a lot of people, getting them where they needed to go. And so our TDP is based around that, trying to increase productivity, which is get as many people on the bus. Obviously now that is not the case, at least in the near future. We don't know how long into the future. So our TDP before was based on everything before the virus. That, as I just said, has completely changed. I could go into detail of everything that's changed. Jen just talked about the rear door boarding. We now don't accept fares at the fare box because of the rear door boarding. And that's part of a safety measure to protect our drivers. Numerous different things. Our cleaning, really our focus of our maintenance department now, obviously, is keeping up on the buses, but keeping buses disinfected, or as much as possible as we can do. So everything that we would have talked about in the TDP, which would then get incorporated in New Visions, has definitely changed. And I'd like to be able to say we can predict what's going to happen in the next 3 months, 6 months, 3 years, 5 years, but we need to let this play out a little bit more before we understand what the next steps are, especially, you know, guidance from the governor's office, which may come down to stating there needs to be X number of people maximum on a bus. These are types of things we don't know yet. So we're going to have to put our TDP on pause as sort of CDTA becomes a new company that adjusts to the virus. Because even if the virus eventually goes away, there's a vaccine, this has totally changed people's travel patterns, people's comfort being on a bus, number of different factors. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't see how, and Jen and Sandy and I have talked about this. I don't see how we can have the TDP get incorporated into new visions at this time when we really don't know what's going to be in the TDP. So that's it if anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Russ. Any other discussion on the adoption of our draft New Visions 2050 update for release? The final draft to the public. Anything further on that at this time? It's item 7 on our agenda. Ready to vote?
I do have one quick question about the public participation portion of the plan. You'd actually scrolled through a lot of different options. I was wondering if there had been any thought of doing maybe like a telephone town hall or something like that for the general public.
Yeah, Maria, we are going to plan on doing some live webinars, similar to how we're doing now, integrating it with YouTube, making it available, putting out some videos. For, moving forward, we're also still need to be able to reach people who don't have computer or reliable internet access. So I've reached out to our local libraries because they are still continuing to serve their customers who don't have internet, to kind of partner and think about ways that we can continue to do that. We're hoping that, over the next few months, there is some easing and there's some way that we can be out, maybe at outdoor events, having a table or just distributing information. But we want to make sure that we are being safe and protecting public health. But we're continuing to explore all that. And we will be putting out dates and information for webinars and other online and virtual ways for the public to participate.
Yeah,
Okay,
Maria,
yeah.
This is Mike. I mean, we are going to have a virtual public meeting. We're going to upgrade our Zoom account and be able to have a webinar and get, people. I think it's over 100 people if they actually want to attend. But we'll do the public meetings. We'll try to advertise that in advance and try to get as many people we can to the virtual public meeting.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you, Mike. All right. Maria?
Can we continue that conversation? Maria, I mean, there's such an important oversight role with federal highway. Have you gotten any direction regarding not in-face public meetings? I mean, it goes beyond the New Visions discussion, but the progression of projects in general, sort of any direction of what the new reality, do virtual public meetings suffice?
Yeah, I mean, our headquarters had sent out just a notification to us that that they are looking into it. They haven't really given us too much more on that, especially with on the project specific level, where there is regulatory language that says that there needs to be an in-person meeting, but continue to capture all the things that we're doing here, given the situation, and also think about other ways where really could reach out to populations that might not necessarily have the type of technologies that would that we're using right now to capture their feedback on on the long range transportation plan. I mean, one of the reasons like telephone town hall is because not everyone has the technology to log on. So maybe the telephone might be something that is a little more accessible. So
that's I agree. I mean, that's where I'm a little bit hesitant for underserved parts of the community having access to input, whether the adoption now in the absence of what the new reality looks like. I mean, are we opening ourselves to criticism by proposing the adoption of a long range plan that may have an element or at least not clarification of how public participation should be progressed. I don't know. And I'd offer the same comment about, I'm not sure that the new reality can just be tucked into a chapter on resiliency and that covers it in terms of our long range plan. I don't know. I don't know where these timetables of the adoption here, if we're pushing it to get this update out at such a time of uncertainty. I don't know. I just offer it for comment.
But this is Ross. I'd agree with Bob. If there is a way to push out the adoption of new visions, to one, get it so you can actually do meaningful public outreach to communities that can't get online or easily online, that's good. And also, it's not just transit. I'm sure every form of transportation in some way or shape or form is going to dramatically change, not just for the next 3 months, but for the next 3 to 5 years or more. And we don't know what that is. But again, if there's federal guidelines that say it has to be adopted by a certain time, obviously we have to meet those guidelines. But yeah, I just agree with what Bob was.
Yeah, I mean, right now we've been on a schedule to adopt in September. We have always, have done amendments to the long range plan. So I mean, Mike can talk about our timetable and what our requirements are for adoption, but I know we're trying to keep the public participation process ongoing and keep this a living document so we continue to make changes and have flexibility right now. As far as like our requirements for adoption, Mike and
I would just like to say that one concern would be if we wait until we can really fully explore the impacts of the pandemic before we approve the plan. We could be waiting several years. I mean, it's going to be hard. It's really hard in the near future, but it's going to be hard even a year from now to say what the long-term impacts are.
We did talk, this is Mike, we did talk about this in the New York State AMPO meetings, and there are 4 other MPOs that are also progressing a new visions update process right now. And at this point, we are all not anticipating a delay in the process. Now that could change, but we are all in agreement at this point for the ones that are updating their long range plan that we're going to continue with the current schedule, unless we're told that we can't continue from FHWA or FTA. But that's the status of the other MPOs and the other long range plans.
And I do appreciate that CDTC is looking as this as a living document where there could be amendments to it later on, given the current situation. I think that that the current adoption needs to be completed by September. Am I right about that, Mike?
That's the requirement. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that the adoption should, if it can be, continue to be on schedule. That would be, that would be ideal. I do think though that the public participation portion is just something that, we just need to kind of keep looking at. And then as far as the resiliency portion, I think it's something that we'll be looking at, even more so now than in the past. And I think that one LRTP update that that it tries to explore that further would be something that I see in planning studies later on down the line.
In the past, at least most MPOs, I think once they get done with their long range plan, they kind of put it aside and continue on with other projects and other plans. But we've talked about this internally among staff, and we really do want to continue the process after it's approved. We want to go out there, we want to do public outreach, we want to do marketing, we still want to get people's involvement and engagement into the plan and their buy-in. So we really are planning not to just put this on the shelf, but to continue making progress and getting the public engaged, so that they realize that there is a plan and that this is what the plan says.
Very good. It's a dynamic situation, clearly, that we'll do our best. to improve as the new information is available. We're all doing our very best, and public participation will be the challenge to focus on. And we'll monitor this closely and move it forward. We see the U.S. Senate holding meetings in their building with social distancing. I don't know if you would consider having a large hall with mandatory enforced distancing, or if all online is preferred. Maybe we can do a mixed approach, as our June elections are having all options. If you want to show up the polls, you can show up the polls, and then they're promoting the absentee offline equivalent for that important function of our government. So we'll stay tuned. We'll do our best. Do we meet in a month in early June, Mike? I think we do.
No, policy committee.
That's
Policy
policy.
in June. and of
Policy in
course-
June.
Right, we'll meet in July and August.
Very good. Anyway, I don't mean to digress. We're ready to vote on release to the public of the final draft as outlined by staff. Excellent job. Is there any further discussion before we vote? Motion by,
Bradley?
is that Brad?
Yes.
Second by,
I'll second.
who was that? Michael?
Somebody got it. I was gonna get in there just to keep.
Bill, that was Bill
Very good
Anslow.
move. Very good. Thank you very much. All in favor, please say aye. Give your thumbs up. Thank you.
Aye.
Aye.
Any abstaining or opposed? Hearing none, consensus carries. We move forward for public release of our 30-year vision in these challenging times. All right, we're up to Roman numeral 8, draft transportation air quality conformity. Chris touched on this slightly, but this is an action item. Was in the advanced agenda. Let's see, item 8. Is that Mike?
Well, I mean, I think Chris talked about it in the presentation. If there are any other questions or comments about it, we should do that now and then vote on it, but I don't know if there are many questions.
Any questions or discussion? So we're in marginal attainment. Is that what it was? Chris, give me a 1-sentence summary for our future grant applications.
Okay, it's very complicated, but basically we were in attainment, and then because of legal actions that took place, we were in attainment for the 2008 ozone standard. Because as you could see from the chart previously, our air quality is getting better, our emissions are going down, thanks to vehicle technology and other improvements. But then the court rulings said that we are now in non-attainment for the 1997 8-hour ozone standard as of February of 2019. So now we have to do conformity again, but there's a recognition that because we are so far below the standard of we're so much better than the 1997 standard, we're not required to do detailed technical forecasts of air quality emissions. We just have to go through the process of conformity, and that's what what we have in your package, and that will be approved hopefully as a draft in June by the policy board, and then still go through review over the summer as a draft, final approval in September.
All right, for new projects, we don't have to count emissions on pickup trucks of the workers coming to the site. That's good news. Thank you very much. That's what I'm seeing when I apply for grants. Any further discussion on this voting item? Number 8 for air quality conformity update. Motion to approve, please. I'll move it. Second by
Bradley?
Thank you, Brad. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thumbs up. Any abstaining or opposed? Our consensus carries for air quality conformity update. Roman numeral 9 is next. That's our section 5310, enhanced mobility of seniors and individuals with disabilities program project approval. Mike and then Carrie Ward will brief
Sure,
us.
I'll just quickly introduce it. There is a handout, a 1-page but 2 sides handout in the package with the agenda item number Roman numeral 9 up in the top right corner. It'll describe basically how much funding is available. 5310 is mostly for vehicles, but also for operations. Carrie, do you want to take it from here?
Sure. So the handout find it. The handout describes how much money is available for this round. And then on the second page, there's two options. And they both, well, the first option, they both list all of the applicants that applied for funding. And they list the federal request that was made. They're in order of the ranking that the ranking and rating committee came up with, which was made up of staff from DOT, aging, and CDTC. We did have a plan for OPWDD and I think Department of Mental Health to participate in the process, but we got the applications right when the issues with the virus started and they had to drop out. So hopefully in the future, the selection committee can be a little bit broader. So we're presenting two options for funding here. The first one, the selection committee is recommending, and it basically awards partial grants to a number of applicants, which enables more applicants to receive funds. The second option is just awards applicants in the rank that they made in the selection process until we run out of funds. So the third project there would just get the remaining funds that are available, and they would have to figure out how many vehicles they could get from that.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. Any questions for Carrie before we vote?
Carrie, I have one because I was involved in the review for the other MPO, and we had up there was, I noticed there's one, I think it was ARC, had coverage area that was outside of that MPO area, and I didn't know how do you work that when they put in there for the number of vehicles that they have elsewhere, number of employees, and the dollar in their budget and everything.
Are you talking about the Saratoga Bridges application?
Not for ours. It's just a general question. Well, there's an ARC on here also, Schenectady, and then there's Northeast Health. There's agencies that serve both geographic areas of both MPOs. I don't know if is there a blending. I mean, in their applications, did they have, for example, these ones right here? Did they have coverage area outside of the MPO?
In the past, we have divided an application, and in the past, we've gotten a Washington, Warren, and Albany ARC.
That's one I was looking at. I'm sorry.
Then we divided that. I don't believe that they applied this time. I mean, that comes down to us from DOT Main Office Transit Bureau.
Mm-hmm.
So my assumption, and I didn't see anything in the application, for example, from Saratoga Bridges, that said that they were providing services outside of our MPO area. So our assumption is that it's not, but there's no certification that it's not.
Okay, all right. I'll talk with Bob at another time later then about it.
A motion to approve item 9. Any further discussion?
So move by Bradley.
Thank you, Brad. Second by
Mike.
Thank you, Michael. All in favor, please say aye or thumbs up.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any abstain or opposed? Hearing none, our section 5310 has consensus moving forward. And Roman numeral 10 is continuing operations plan approval, which was in the advanced agenda. Roman numeral 10. Draft 2020 continuing ops. Presentation by Mike.
Yes, I'm trying to share screen here. I don't know how successful I'm going to be.
It's in the advanced agenda with quite a few pages. Let's see, it looks like 40 how many pages. It's the bulk of our package.
But it's labeled as number 9.
Yeah, falsely upper right corner should be corrected to Roman 10. That's an error in the print, the advanced print. There were 2 9s, so this is 10.
Mike, were you just gonna share the document? I can share it for you if you want me to just scroll through it.
Please do.
You have that?
The continuing operations plan?
Yes.
I believe so, yeah.
All right. And I'm doing everything else besides what I want here. Let me,
let's-
Does anyone not have the advanced agenda packet? We could refer to that. Double-sided printed.
well, let me start with this. So you have it in your packet, and it is a long document. There's no doubt about that. This update is just that. John Porman, my predecessor, originally wrote this document back in 2009. It was actually approved by the Planning Committee in May of 2010. So what we're really doing, and I say we because Chris O'Neill helped me update this document, is updating what John wrote. And most of what John wrote, honestly, is still applicable today, even from 2010. There was a list of projects and accomplishments that, of course, Chris and I had to work on. One of the biggest changes was in the organization chart. Can anybody see, or can everybody see what I tried to share as an organization chart on their screen?
Yes.
Okay. So the organization has become a little more complicated since 2010 and the 2010 chart. What we did in this new chart is bring in pretty much everyone who participates in the program in this MPO process. So you see in this chart, for example, non-member agencies and private sector and consultants. They do play a role, and we often take advantage of their expertise. The biggest change in the organization is the advisory committees, working groups, and task forces. These were nowhere near as extensive as they have been in the recent past. We really relied a lot on the advisory committees for their expertise, and they have made recommendations and given and advised the planning committee, where that wasn't the case 10 years ago. So that in addition to the public, I mean, we really do consider the public part of the process and part of the program. So we added them to the chart. We also added the subcommittees for the policy board, which not everybody realizes exists, but there is a subcommittee of the policy board called the Administrative and Financial Standing Subcommittee that actually oversees a lot of our finances that we meet on a quarterly basis before the policy board meeting. So this was one of the major changes in the plan, in John's plan back in 2010. In the new plan, I would say that most of the first 10 chapters are very much the same as what John wrote himself. The organization chart was chapter 11, a list of members in chapter 10. Where Chris and I really had to do a little more work was in chapters 12, 13, and 14. Unfortunately, John was not able to finish a lot of that section, so Chris and I did that. A quick summary of those later chapters. I would ask you to focus mostly on chapter 14, because chapter 14, we actually talk about some of the threats to continuing operations, whether they're internal or external, and the type of impacts that they have, and then the strategies that we can use to address those threats. I don't want to bore you with going into detail, but things like a pandemic, things like a virus attack on our computer system, damage to the building in case the building is damaged to the point where we can't use the offices or we lose hardware and software. So kind of a catch-all chapter where what applies may apply to other organizations, certainly to other MPOs, where what we would do if we had to recover our hardware or our software, what we do with the pandemic, which we now have experience with. and some of the other threats. And some of the other threats just being, maintaining a high caliber staff, maintaining involvement in the MPO process, and getting into strategies and practices that we use now and we will continue to use in the future. That's a short version of the detail. I mean, it's a document that we will use, staff will become familiar with, and in the case of issues or threats to the MPO, we'll have a guideline or guidelines to react to the threat. That's all I have on that. It would definitely entertain any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Michael. Excellent overview. 120 pages, very well drafted. So commendations to the late, great Director Poorman, rest in peace. The organizational chart, if you have it, is page 96. In the chapter 14, Planning for an Uncertain Future, is page 107 of the 120 total for reference. Very well drafted, very cogent and excellent framework for the MPO operating environment. Any other discussion?
If you really if you have the time and the interest, John Poorman was a fantastic writer. And that's why I think Chris and I decided that a lot of what he said and wrote down was still applicable, still relevant. And if you have the time, and don't get me wrong, I know there's a few pages, but John did an incredible job in trying to describe very complicated concepts in the first, say 9 chapters. And if you have the time, I have read it, and of course other people have. It is pretty impressive. I know other MPOs have read what John wrote, and they were also very impressed. But I have to give credit to John Poorman because, again, a great writer and a great observer of the MPO process.
All of our agencies are mentioned in the 80s. All of our agencies, including Port Authority, Airport Authority, CDTA, CDRPC, counties, cities, towns and villages, private transit operators, everyone is included. It's an all-inclusive, excellent MPO overview for our region. So we vote on this. Is there any other discussion?
Yes, please. We would like your approval.
All right, motion, please.
Motion by Bradley.
Thanks again, Brad. Second by? Second? I'll second it. By the chair. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thumbs up. Any abstaining or opposed? The operations plan is approved by consensus. All right, we're up to item 11 now. And 11 is the CTC Regional Planning Commission Technical Assistance Program, the TAP. Let's see, we got Mark on the line.
I'm here, Steve.
Thank you.
And Sandy is also here, and just like to thank the Planning Committee once again for supporting this program. We did receive 4 applications through this current solicitation, and they represent a wide range of projects. Previously shared with the committee is the description that Sandy put together with the project budgets. So the first item in that memo is a project for the town of Clifton Park involving their update to the generic environmental impact statement for the Western Clifton Park area, last developed in 2005. So this is a 15-year update in that area. There are a number of issues and that they want to take a look at, including growth and development scenarios over the course of the last 15 years. So that would be the focus of that project. Total project commitment, including local in-kind match, is $18,000. The effort on CDRPC and CDTC side is just under $12,000 of effort. Next one is East Greenbush. The Gilligan Road Complete Streets Enhancement Feasibility Study support. This one is going to be more heavily on the side of CDTC's work, working with the town in the redevelopment of the Gilligan Road area and making other recommendations relevant to that project and connections with the school district and the surrounding community. Total effort from the agencies just under $7,000. Robust in-kind local match, so the total project commitment is just under $14,000. Next one is the town of Glenville. Glenville recently updated their comprehensive plan, and the project will focus specifically on an area of around Route 50, making relevant recommendations to the goals of the comprehensive plan, and including zoning code audit, sharing best practices of how the best ways to implement the vision of the comprehensive plan as it relates to that particular area around New York State Route 50. Agencies total $9,600. Local in-kind match total project value is just over $12,000. And the last one, rounding it out, is the town of Westerlo in Western Albany County. If you don't know where Westerlo is, the name is a good hint. Total agency commitment is just over $8,300. Total project commitment just over $10,000. This is a comprehensive plan update. Comprehensive plan provides the foundation for how the community chooses to grow, where it chooses to grow, addresses transportation issues, development issues, so all the things that we hope to provide assistance with to communities through this program. Westerlo does not have a lot of capacity. They don't have a planning staff, so we really feel that this is going to be a project where we can provide them with a good deliverable that's going to help them move on in their process.
Thank you, Mark. Small but important projects, important first steps for greater things in many cases. Any questions for Mark? This is a voting item, number 11. It's our last voting item.
Yeah, I have a question, Mark, on the ones that came through and I was looking at on the comprehensive plans being updated, whatever. As you just mentioned with Westerlo, have you seen applications come in from smaller municipalities or villages per se that don't have planning staff of their own that are taking advantage of this funding?
Not as many as we would like to see.
Okay.
We really envision this program as helping to increase the capacity of smaller local governments and helping them to tee up larger projects. And over the course of the program, the last 3 years, we haven't seen as many applications as we would have liked from the smaller communities.
Okay.
And, you know, I think we did a little better job this time at marketing and advertising. I think that, you know, given the current situation, it made the challenges that those communities have to begin with of submitting these kinds of applications all the more challenging.
Okay.
So that is something that we've focused on and are considering. And as we move forward with this program, I know that we're working with CDTC staff and Mike on ways to enhance the solicitation and engage new communities, and in particular to address the current situation, which may have resulted in not as many applications as we would have liked to see.
Well,
the budget that we approved through CDTC for this program, these 4 projects represent roughly half, a little under half total of the project budget for the program. So we have a little extra room. So we're considering what that means and whether or not to offer some additional assistance a little bit later on in the year when those small capacity communities may have a little extra time to devote to an application or a project.
The reason why I ask is because my intent right now is to take what came out in the mailer yesterday, the email yesterday, and forward that to, you know, we have 9 villages, and my intent is to just mail this again to those 9 villages who they don't have staff, and they're not really using. There's not a TDE involved with them at all, but to let them know, because I'm assuming this was mailed out again. I always ask Mike this or Sandy, and I always get the affirmative that it goes out to each municipality within our 4 counties, right? The solicitation.
Right.
Okay. So they have all received this, and yet you're not seeing anything coming back to evidence that they're going forward with anything. While there may be a need, but they're not acting on it. So in some way, I mean, I intend to do a double and follow up on yours, but what I'm looking at is to say, what would be the gap in a small municipality if they were awarded money through this program? What would you see as the gap, particularly with a zoning update or a comprehensive plan update or initiation of a comprehensive plan, from what they would get through this funding versus what they may take on if they did a full-blown thing with, with a consultant?
That's a lot packed into the question. I think the first part may be addressed with barriers to applying. And, while our threshold for the skin in the game for those municipalities is relatively low in terms of an in-kind match contribution, which can be achieved through volunteer hours, any other money that you contribute to the project. For some communities, that might be something that's difficult for them to wrap their heads around. I mean, if they called us up and talked to them, we could very easily, explain what that is, and that's not really that big of a barrier. We can work with you to figure that piece out. I think the larger question is sometimes, it's the operational logistics of applying for a grant at the municipal level, right?
Can I address some of that as somebody from one of those small villages? There's a number of issues. The in-kind match is one of the issues for small villages because of our limits and budget, but it's also the personnel. I happen to be, interested, involved in planning, and I'm a trustee. So I'm, applied for the larger grant in which we got, which we're very thankful for. But I think our case is unusual. So I would like to see, maybe the county become more active in providing planning expertise to villages in small places that don't have planners. I think I've seen that in other parts of the country, or the state, where the county takes I know they review, all the applications that go through the planning board, et cetera, but maybe offering some sort of consulting to villages to help them. And then, of course, as you mentioned, the grant writing. I happen to be a grant writer. I do healthcare grants, so I use, I have that ability, but very few small villages have anybody who can write a grant for them unless they hire someone, and then it's the dollar impact again.
So the practical challenges of actually submitting a grant application, who's going to do it? I mean, the supervisor has to do all sorts of things. So the crop of people available to write these applications is relatively limited. Just to counterpoint Liz's comment, we have had, I think the proposition of this program is to bring in all agencies to help. And I know Mike is always involved in any linkage program study that is advanced through this program. And I would anticipate, if Clifton Park pulls together an advisory committee, the county would be involved in some way. So I think thinking creatively and thinking how to leverage the collective talents of the agencies, county and CDRPC, CDTC is implicit in the program.
Would you mind, and I know I've talked with you and Sandy and met with you before about this, but in my correspondence, which I will be sending out to the villages, what I'd like to do is, would you mind if I send my cover letter to both you and Sandy just to look at before it goes out, to see if there's anything else to add in that would address some of the obvious shortcomings? And I think Liz addressed them. But my thing is I think that a lot of times that envelope will come in the mail, and a lot of the villages who have no participation with either CDTC or CDRPC, with a busy office and few people, that may be just cast aside, and we've entirely lost them. I think if for myself, if it was do a postal mailing and an emailing on my own as a secondary or backup to what you're doing as a solicitation. It encouraged me when you said you have another solicitation come out, because I know that there are other communities. You have even got the town of Milton within Saratoga Springs could utilize something as far as major intersection in its town. And we've been sending them stuff, and there's still there's nothing coming out of that. You know, I get frustrated with it on my end, so I know I can understand yours also with it, you know.
Who do you send it to? If you send it just to the supervisor or the mayor, it may not go any further.
I don't know what choice they've got but to do that.
Well, I would see if you could identify the chair of the planning board, because they're dealing more with these issues, and they might, take it up.
Increasingly, as we've gone through the program, we've attempted to cast a wider and wider net. So I know the mailing goes to the chief elected official, but we distribute it to our email list of about 2,000 people that include, a variety of local government officials, including planning board members, social media distribution as well. And then, distribution through our newsletters and other avenues. The fact of the matter is that the engagement with any of these communications is relatively low. I mean, the industry standard for email opens is about 22%. So we're just slightly above that. So even in the best case scenario, only 25% of the people are opening the emails that we send out.
That's true.
So I think I would really appreciate all the members of this committee, the members of my board, to help make a joyful noise that this program exists and share it with anybody that would benefit from it.
Excellent. Thank you, Mark. Very good overview, good input. Thank you, Liz. So this is all productive. We do need to vote on advancing the continuation, I guess, of this important TAP between the CTC and RPC staff. Excellent collaboration and good service provided. Best efforts noted. So we're ready to vote. I need a motion.
Motion by Bradley.
I second it.
Who is that?
Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Did you
Second by?
No, I said, did you have to guess who that second was?
The audio is breaking up. I'm very sorry. We have a motion.
Motion by Brad,
Do we
second
have
by
a
Mike.
second? Second by Mike. All right, that's fine. Let's, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thumbs up. Any abstaining or opposed? 100% consensus on all 11 items. Very good. Meeting into discussion items now. Item 12 is the FHWA and FTA in-person certification. And Michael will do a brief overview.
Sure, I'll be quick on this. Every 4 years, we do have an in-person certification review conducted by FHWA and FTA staff. So Maria from the New York division here in Albany, and then FTA comes in from New York City because that's where their regional office is. But it's in person every 4 years. Every MPO with that's considered a TMA, population greater than 200,000, goes through this process. We've had a couple scheduled dates for our in-person certification, and they've been impacted by the pandemic. We're meeting again with Maria and Rochelle, the FTA representative, tomorrow in a meeting to discuss possibly, again, the meeting hasn't been held yet, but trying to do a virtual in-person certification. Part of the process for the in-person certification is trying to get input from planning committee, policy board, and even the public. So we will be going through that issue again, similar to what we're going through with New Visions, is trying to get that input. We will keep you absolutely informed of our progress. There's usually a period of time in the process where planning and policy board members can contribute. It may be virtual this time. You may not have to come to our office to do it last time. But that's what's going on now. Again, we'll keep you informed of what the decision is now. We have a tentative date scheduled for the 3 days after Memorial Day right now, but that's what we will be talking with FHWA and FTA tomorrow. So that's a quick update.
Thank you, Michael. Any questions on this discussion item? We can move forward. The Pledge to Ride was in our advanced agenda, item 13. Pledge to Ride campaign, May 1st through June 5th. Bicycling is up in these days and circumstances. Michael?
Yeah. Yes, if you saw the article in the Times Union this morning, it said just that, Steve, about how bicycle shops are being inundated with requests for bicycle tune-ups or new bicycle purchases, bicycling is up. So we want to encourage bicycling. It's good for health. It's good for a lot of reasons. Bike to work was canceled, postponed until later on in the season, probably in the fall. So for now, instead of the usual bike to work program, we have this pledge to ride. And there's a handout in your in your package, as Steve suggested. If you know bike riders who are willing to pledge to ride, this is just a fun way to get people out and to try to, replace normal everyday walking and driving, vehicle driving with bicycling. So that's going on now. It started May 1st. And if you have any interest, please see the handout or our website for Pledge to Ride.
Very good, Michael. Very worthy effort. And next item is 14, CTC project delivery update. Is Jacob on the line?
Yes, I am. Thanks, Steve. So a couple notes on project delivery for CDTC. I've got 4 projects that we want to highlight that have hit some milestones since our last update in April. Saratoga County project, Middle Line Road over Gordon Creek tributary, was authorized for construction in April. Also, Village of Green Island project, Hudson Avenue pavement preservation, construction was also authorized in April. We've got a Schenectady County project, the High Bridge Road and East Campbell Street Road sidewalk extension and reconstruction project. PS&E was submitted in April. And also Town of Charlton Bridge New York project, Peaceable Street over Morning Kill Culvert. Construction was also authorized in April. Upcoming project delivery requests for our June meeting. I'm going to be sending out emails to the City of Albany, Town of Sand Lake, and Town of East Greenbush for their project updates. So stay on the lookout for those. Also, just wanted to mention quickly, as always, we've been posting the project tracking spreadsheet on the website with the meeting materials. So just wanted to make everybody aware that those are still there. And typically I'm getting project updates from DOT, consultant updates, as well as the individual sponsor updates that I send out each month. But just wanted to kind of encourage everyone to take a look at that sheet. Take a look at your projects, whether you're a sponsor or a consultant. Take a quick look and feel free to send me updates on your own. Just want to make sure that we have the most accurate and up-to-date information on that sheet. So just wanted to put that out there as well. That's all.
Any questions? Excellent, Jacob. Thank you for the overview. I think this is a useful, very useful planner's tool. I think most people would agree. Any comments or questions on these projects? Moving forward, our last discussion item in the agenda is the DOT project delivery schedule. Available at the meeting, Bob?
Greg was going to talk a little bit about our lettings. Greg?
Yeah.
Oh, Greg, yes.
Everything is surprisingly gone seamless on our capital program side. All our lettings have still been held. Our upcoming lettings are still on schedule and happening. We've actually seen more bidders recently. We've actually getting up to 4 bidders, which is nice. We've been seeing 1, 2, or none. And prices have seemingly gotten a little more competitive. So it's as far as the highway capital program side, it's all good news. So if there's any questions specifically, I'm free to answer them, but we let varying projects from multi-site paving to bridge work order type work, and all things have moved forward. So any questions on that?
Excellent. Thank you, Greg. I'm glad to hear it's competitive and prices are good. Oil prices are down. Asphalt is oil. I think everyone saw on the news, it was actually a negative value that would pay people to pick up the oil. Negative $40 a barrel for a short period on the futures. It was May futures just a week or so ago. Any questions for Greg on the DOT delivery schedule projects? It's good news on the competitive bidding. We're about to go out to bid here at the airport with paving of our empty parking lots. That was it on our agenda. Are there other items of interest? Any old business? Any new business? Would we like to have any key member updates around the table? It's 11:05. Michael, what do you think?
Can we go through, quickly go through the updates? It's Mike.
What updates?
On the agenda, the status of planning committee or planning activities.
Oh, okay.
Who's first? I don't have it on my list.
CDTC is first. So
Here we go. I'm
Steve,
sorry. Yeah, I had to jump off another agenda. Okay, very good. We're on item 16 on the advanced agenda. So did you have anything else, Michael? CDTC, you said no?
No, I didn't say that. I didn't.
Okay,
no,
go
I
ahead.
didn't say no.
Item A, it's all yours. Apologies.
I have a quick update, a request. So we have 2 solicitations going on right now. One, we are looking for project sponsors for ADA transition plan assistance. So everybody has to write an ADA transition plan, and we started a new task this year to provide assistance to a village, town, whatever city that needs to write these transition plans. We have some expertise in staff, and we certainly have some numbers that would help. So if you have interest in getting a transition plan completed, we are available to help you. You'll have to apply for it. The information's on the website, or you could email myself or Carrie Ward and get email directly sent to you. The other solicitation is the Complete Streets training. We have done this in the past, and it's been really well accepted by towns and villages who have gotten together, a considerable amount of staff to inform them about the Complete Streets process. So we've done this in several towns and villages already. It's provided free to the applicant. The applicant only has to provide a room and the participants, the attendees for the training. So another great, I think, a great program that we have. We're going through the solicitation for that. If you're interested in Complete Streets training, anywhere from basics training to advanced training, we have a consultant on, that will do this training for you. So again, please contact myself, look at the website, or contact Chris Bauer or Carrie Ward about that training, Complete Streets training. That's all we have.
Mike, I have a question for you on that.
Yep.
Would you consider a village and a town, that village that's within the town, to be, would you combine the two?
We could, and we have. There's also an option for regional training, which we've done before. So like the regional training is involved, a county and many towns along with that. So absolutely, yes.
You heard that, Liz.
Yep, nope, that's fine.
Yup, nope. What does that mean?
No, I've got a phone call after this to the town supervisor to talk about what Liz and I were both talking about, so.
Good job. Thanks.
I live in Milton and the village. Same thing.
That's what I meant.
Yep. Sounds good.
Mike, thanks for marketing our programs. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay, item 16B is Regional Planning Commission. Mark?
Sure. We're staff is continuing to work remotely, and we're available for continued technical assistance. One of the new programs that we instituted in lieu of our spring planning and zoning workshop is a Thursday webinar series. We had our kickoff one last Thursday, talking about planning impacts from the current pandemic. Tomorrow's webinar will be sponsored by the Burge Group, and we'll focus on the title is that's not what I approved. It's how some guidance on how sometimes when planning boards approve things, what they end up with isn't exactly what they had in mind. So those are 10 a.m. You can register through our website. You just look at news and events and click on the webinar series and register through Zoom. Eligible for planning board, zoning board credit, and CM credits for our AICP planners.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mark. Mike and Mark, I only caught about half of what you were saying. There was, I don't know if it's interference from other microphones. Everyone should mute if you're not speaking or don't need to speak. Please mute your microphone. I think that might be part of it, or it might be the server. Next up is CDTA. Is Ross on the line?
Yep. Well, as I talked before, sort of everything at CDTA has changed. We did roll out our largest service change in the last, so what we can figure out, the last 20 years on April 26th for the amount of routes that were affected. The term we use affectionately internally now is corona crowding on our buses. So some services saw an increase in frequency to try to social distance our passengers as best as we can, while other services we've seen a complete drop off of ridership. So those services were reduced. And on the operator end, we've actually been more successful than most transit authorities. I think right now we only have 4 confirmed cases, and we do have some people out on leave. But overall, we're very lucky in the sense of the amount of our operators and mechanics that have been impacted. But again, as I was saying before, just our overall operations has changed. Right now, it's free fare because we have to get everybody in and out the rear door. Really, everything's changed. So if anybody has any questions for CDTA, feel free to give me a call after this, and I'll tell you where we stand.
Great. Thank you, Ross. I wish we were only down 60% at the airport. I'll save my report. DOT is up next, item D. Bob or Greg?
Hey, thanks, Steve. Just to touch on a couple topics. Our staff primarily continues to work from home, and we've been able to maintain our functionability and via these sort of different platforms for video conferencing and the such. We've been able to get through this so far. The department continues an extensive involvement in the COVID response, whether it's transporting people and equipment all across the state from various stockpiles, a lot of hand sanitizer, personal protective equipment, that sort of stuff. But we've also been involved in some Department of Health screening volunteers and as well as manning the phones at the Department of Labor, the unemployment stuff. So the department's been pretty extensively involved. They're currently drafting as part of the governor's commitment, this sort of unpause as that rolls out upstate, and what that would mean in terms of staffing in the building. Probably a 25% return, some sort of number into Wolf Road, and what those precautions and things. But I don't see it an immediate sort of thing, as a gradual rollout. Greg mentioned we're having good luck in terms of the federal aid program through this body in terms of getting those lettings, but anything that's state funded is certainly under a different level of scrutiny right now. We don't have revised budget numbers or actual appropriations for anything that's 100% state. So obviously we're getting a lot of questions about things like chips, Marchicelli shares, those things, and we really just don't have the answers to that yet now. Anything that the department is proposing for letting that's 100% state is going through the comptroller's office and budget office for scrutiny, and if it's not a health and safety related matter, it's sort of on hold now. So hopefully we'll have some more answers shortly in terms of state funding side. And conversely, we're at least putting some proposals together, for if there is a federal stimulus bill on the transportation side that were at least available with some candidates that we've talked through. at this body, either the supplemental projects or other candidates that had come up should there be a stimulus on the federal side. We continue to wrap up the Troy Manans, the bridge. Federal Highway's been real cooperative. We had a conference call with state of Illinois, who had done a similar bridge replacement, this planning environmental linkage study. And we had a good conversation with them, what works and what doesn't in terms of our consultant scope. So hopefully we'll see some action on that in the near term as well. And that's all I got, Steve.
Any questions for Bob, Greg, or DOT? Thank you, Bob. Is anyone on from the Thruway Authority?
Hi, good morning. This is Tim Wainwright. How are you today?
Thank you, Tim. A briefing?
Sounds very similar to what DOT is going through. We've had a lot of operational changes in how we're doing our business. Also supporting a lot of the critical missions across the state with delivering needed items. As far as our capital program, we are moving forward with our Old State Road bridge replacement, and we're looking at possibly doing some diamond grinding in our concrete section between interchanges 23 and 24. That's about all there is for an update. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer any.
Great, thank you, Tim. Any questions on the Thruway Authority? All right, let's see, who's next? Airport Authority. All right, our ridership, passengers are down over 95%. We usually have 4,000 to 5,000 passengers per day. We're down to a couple hundred. I might be optimistic. Our corona crowding is 1 or 2 or 3 people on a commercial aircraft that holds 130. Air freight is more critical than ever. You probably saw the news of 1 million masks coming in direct from China a couple weeks ago. The commercial passenger air carriers are bleeding about $10 billion a month right now, was a news story this morning. So it's a whole new age, and our aeronautical mass transit is taking a hard hit. Carriers are still fully staffed. The authority is staffed, but hanging on by a thread is off the record, my personal observation on this. So we'll see how it goes. We're still moving forward with critical infrastructure, preservation and enhancement. Paving our parking lots is out to bid. 4 passenger boarding bridges at $1 million apiece is out to bid. This is all funded under our ticket taxes and fuel taxes. Fuel flow is way down, about 90% down on fuel flow. And that's a big part of our operation here. So that's a quick overview on the Airport Authority. We're extremely grateful to the state with our new, improved, beautiful terminal and garage improvements here. Just waiting for the public to return. So it's a balancing act, a very cautious optimism with the incremental and regional approach. Seems very smart statewide for reopening. And there's some hopeful news on the horizon for relief to all of us. I wouldn't make any rash decisions on even our long range planning personally, because it is so dynamic and changing day by day. There's likely to be many changes coming in the near term and midterm future. Huge global effort for vaccines and new therapies and new approaches to this once in a century or once every couple of century challenge that we're facing. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, anyone. You've probably seen our regular flight schedules way down. As I said, 95% of passengers are missing. And it's about 60% reduction in our scheduled operations. So maybe that correlates with the CDTA bus. I think you were talking ridership, but your scheduled service is still pretty full, right, Ross?
Service has gone down. So let's say ridership's gone down 60%. Service has probably gone down around 25-30%.
I didn't hear the last part, but thank you. Any other comments for discussion? Is anyone on from the Port District? Tony Vassal or anyone? I didn't see the list.
No, I don't think there is.
Thank you, Mike. How about local planning? I know we have some local planners on. And linkage.
The linkage schedule is in the back of your package.
And Bike Ped will be meeting on May 12th. The Freight Advisory Committee is May 20th. Thanks to Chris Bauer on that. Our CFO, Michael Zonzius, is going to cover me on that freight meeting for an airport overview on May 20th. The Policy Board meets on June 4th. Any other items, Michael? I thank everyone for joining us and
Steve,
for helping. Yep, go ahead.
One question for Mike and for Sandy. Did you guys get an email from Tug Hill Commission on a webinar?
We did not. I did not. Sandy, did you get anything?
The Tug Hill Commission? I don't think so, no.
Well, I had sent you one before. They did a week, I don't know, a while ago, a week ago or so. They did one on citing utility scale solar projects.
Oh, yes, I did see that, yep.
Right. It was excellent. They had like 490 something people signed up. Now they have another one coming up on small wireless facilities and 5G. I don't know if that's something I could forward to you, and maybe you want to send it out to people if they want to listen, if it's worth it.
If you send it to me, Mike, I have to send out an email to our community planner forum group anyway, so okay. I'll include that.
I'll do that then. Thank you.
Sure.
Mike, what did you say it was about? 5G?
Yes.
Like the installation of the little towers?
Yes.
Can you send that to me? If you don't send it to Sandy, we have a group trying to do that here.
So I'm sending it to Sandy right now.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other final comments? Any locals? Linkage? New business, old business?
I just like to thank everybody for their participation.
It's a pleasure.
Excellent. Yeah, we're getting a little better at it. It's my first venture in Zoomerdom. Thank you, everyone. 11:22, motion to adjourn. All in favor? Thank you, Michael. Okay. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, everyone online. All right, so stay safe and healthy, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for flying Albany. Hi, Maria.
Okay.
All right, bye, everybody.
Let's see, how do you exit? Leave the room.